Meet Dave of Delusions of Grandeur, actor, producer, and director of films like Tales of the Forgotten. He has come to assemble a team of freaks, geeks, and even worse, film nerds, to discuss films ranging from mainstream to downright crazy. There is Tammy, car enthusiast, and Dave's fiance, Dustin, reptile expert and overall horror collector, Jake, environmentalist and fine art film critic, and finally Brandon, a therapist with a love of film that can only be seen as insanity. Together under Dave's leadership, they are Inside Movies Galore. Enjoy the show. Enjoy the show.
To heal.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another exciting film journey here on Inside Movies Galore. We are starting a new month, and we are definitely doing a different franchise brought forward by my fiance here. So, Tammy, why don't you give us a fresh course on what you had us watch for tonight?
We are doing the horror of Dracula.
And Horror of Dracula was originally titled Dracula, but it was filmed in 1958. It was directed by Terence Fisher, writers being Jimmy Sangster and Bram Stoker. And I believe to this day, on most lists of those who have voted for who their favorite Dracula is, oftentimes it is Christopher Lee, who outs out everyone. One. So Christopher Lee does and is the person who stars as Dracula in this feature. We've got Peter Cushing, Michael Gove, among many others. But let's see what IMDb says about the film before we move forward. When Jonathan Harker rousts the ire of Count Dracula for accepting a job at the vampire's castle under false pretenses, his friend Dr. Helsing pursues the predatory villain. So, Tammy, did you want to bring us into first impressions?
Okay. Jake, did you want to go first and let us know if you've seen it before and what you thought?
Sure. This is obviously something I was aware of. I mean, I know I've heard you guys talk about Hammer on multiple occasions, and Christopher Lee is widely considered one of the classic Draculas, and I think it's one of the roles he's most associated with. So this was a first-time viewing, however, for me, and I have to admit I was disappointed. Not that it's a bad movie. This is leagues above the last month. My God, this is so much better. We're back in the realm of decent films. But I was expecting more, honestly. And I guess maybe we'll see more in the later movies in terms of Lee as Dracula. This movie, I think he has a dozen lines according to IMDb, and they're all in like the first 15 minutes. and he only has like 20, 30 minutes in the whole film, if that.
Well, that's more than Bella Lugosi ever had.
Well, I think the percentage is close. If I were to, I'd have to look more closely at it. But and you're right. You're right. If I had heard, well, I think we talked about how the original Dracula was a little disappointing to me when I first saw it, because I know we covered that several months back. Um, but Lugosi was more of a presence in that film. And also he didn't have to share the spotlight with other big names like in this one. And part of this is looking back from well, modern times. I know Michael Gough as Alfred from Tim Burton's Batman movies, and that's a big role. And he also did some other stuff with Tim Burton. And of course, Cushing and Lee are both known for their roles on Star Wars. You know, Cushing will probably be known forever as Grand Moff Tarkin. I mean, that's his defining role. So, like, I don't know how big a name. I think Lee, this was like one of his first big things. And Cushing, it may have been one of his first big things. But from someone coming back from the modern era, I know these names, and I expect more, but also I feel like Cushing is given top billing. I feel like Lee really had to share the spotlight this time around in a way that Lugosi didn't necessarily have to, if that makes sense. But anyway, and also, I'm going to be honest. In this movie, Christopher Lee looks eerily and disconcertingly like Baron Trump, and I just could not unsee that once I saw it. It was interesting and weird seeing Lee and Michael Gough as young people, because Michael Gough is not young in the Batman movies. So I thought that was kind of amusing and different. I've seen more of Christopher Lee's stuff through the years, but of course, most people know him nowadays as Saruman and Count Dooku, and he was definitely much older in those roles. So it's definitely interesting.
And his teeth were just as cracked then as they are now.
They were one of the eeriest parts of this.
Yeah, but he definitely didn't have a dental plan with Hammer, I guess.
Yeah. And an interesting thing about this movie, and this was, again, I've seen the Bela Lugosi Dracula. I've seen Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula. I've read the book by Bram Stoker. And I do find it weird how you cite the original authors as authors on the film when Stoker probably would have rolled over in his grave at this movie, because it's a remix. It's a remix. There are so many things changed from the book.
Well, even Stoker's wife was very animated about keeping his work protected and shit.
Well, that's the whole reason Nosferatu exists, because the Stoker estate would not give permission. But I mean, IMDb's description gives it away right there. The whole entire role of Jonathan Harker was rewritten. His relationship to some of the other characters was completely rewritten, which of course changes Dracula's entire motivation. This version of the story is interesting, and I like. Of course, another one of the weird things is that the entire movie seems to take place in Germany. Whereas the original one was split between Transylvania and Britain.
And yet it was all filmed within the studio.
And that's another thing that's distracting about it. The whole thing is set in Germany and everyone has British accents. But at any rate, I am glad I finally saw it, and it's a good movie, and I enjoyed it. Would I consider this one of the better Dracula movies? Probably not. And I have to hold off judgment on Christopher Lee as Dracula because I don't feel like I got enough here to make that judgment, honestly. But I'm, it's a good start to the month, and I look forward to the others.
Okay. Is that it then?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. How about you, David?
Well, I am no stranger to the horror of Dracula, and I've uh, I have a different approach to the Dracula films. I grew up on the classic movies,
Mhm.
so yes, I grew up in this age of CGI and the 80s and the 90s and have seen different Draculas over time. I remember Dracula 2000 when that came out, you know.
I did
Uh
not see that one.
I've seen various Draculas that they've put together independently as well as mainstream. And honest to God, I do enjoy a lot of the Hammer flicks.
Mhm.
Mainly because they were so weird, so British, and um they were definitely more of a bloody era. I mean, they were the grisly dime store novelish version of after Bela Lugosi time period. I mean, this is where Universal had a copyright on many of their Universal monsters. So when they did their version of Frankenstein, they had to come up with something different than the boats, and work their way around things because they Universal had an ironclad clasp over what you could and couldn't do in the monster film and genre. So,
which would help explain the differences, that's for sure.
I mean, Universal was like the grandfather of like monster films.
Mhm.
So, um, to me, Hammer Horror was like the independent version of the legacy of these monsters and what they couldn't do with their budgets was amazing, and at least this was at a time period where Hollywood directors and writers were a bit more creative with what they could and couldn't do, no matter whether it didn't look like it was in Bratislava or Transylvania or not. They still were able to come up with these creepy designs. The color designs were distinct. I mean, Christopher Lee's cape definitely, and I've seen different versions and of you know movies, uh, whether it strains over to Spain with their vampire films, and also uh, over to Brazil with their version of Coffin Joe, which um, they definitely took some aspects from the Hammer horror side of things, because this was 1958. Coffin Joe was more like late 1960s.
Mhm.
Um, and they honestly used the way the eyes were with Bela Lugosi and the blood of Hammer horror era. But in any case, I enjoy Christopher Lee. I mean, he dons the role a little bit better as time goes on. This was more of a stiff version, I feel. Uh, Very rough because he's more of an evil version. I mean, the vampire has changed over time from not caring about their looks and how sexy they look to being very sexy and an erotic creature. And honestly, he could be your next door neighbor for all you care. But but it is it was definitely an interesting time period because Dracula was supposed to be an evil creature and supposed to be bloodthirsty.
Mhm.
So to me at this time this is what people were getting at the drive-ins, and I think you very much brought forward a very domineering figure and striking for many. And I think the babes just got more breastier as the films went. So, but
Yeah.
in any case, I enjoy the film for what it is. I do think we kind of get the see the difference in this one is that they change up the Lucy and Mina character, which is often the case in the earlier adaptations of Dracula. It seems like Lucy is the main girl and not Mina, or vice versa. Although I guess Mina was uh, 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 in the later versions of Dracula. I often see that Mina is like married to Jonathan Harker or getting married to Jonathan Harker.
Right.
In this one, it's a little bit different. So, but
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll get into it as the film progresses. I don't want to say too much
Mhm.
because this is Tammy's hosting privileges. So, Tammy, why don't you tell us? Was this a first time watch for you?
Oh no, definitely not. See, I I watched like the Bella ones and this one, and all as I was growing up because they um Saturday nights they'd have, late nights they'd have the horror movies on. And um my great grandparents is where I usually was there on the weekends, and they didn't mind me watching them, the older ones. So I grew up watching, and when I first started watching the Hammer ones and even the Bella and all that, I didn't. I was a kid. I didn't know anything about as, oh, this is Bella and this is Christopher and this is. I just thought Dracula movie, cool. So, excuse me, but so when I first was watching it, I thought it was great because I liked, even when I was a kid, I liked all the older movies, and everything. So I do think though that I even made a comment to David earlier when we were watching this, like Christopher Lee just he looks so mean.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, he had a very severe look that I guess got more severe as he got older. But I guess that was one of the things I was surprised by was that he didn't strike me as naturally severe and intimidating as I'm used to. But, you know,
Yeah, he definitely did. I mean, and I, now looking back on the movie and stuff, I do get what you said about Jacob about the, that there's not a lot of lines. Okay,
mhm.
he doesn't have a whole lot of lines in it, or you don't see him a whole lot in the same respect though. you didn't get a whole lot from Bella either,
Hmm.
But at this time in this era, I think that's how they did it. Is that um, you had your main villain or whatever you want to call them, but they didn't take the spotlight, as, as much as they do nowadays. You know,
Right.
it was kind of like, okay, yep, here's your main villain, but you're only gonna see him a little bit, and the rest of the movie will be about him, but you're only gonna see him a little bit.
Right.
But at that time, that seemed like that's what sold movies, because people were sitting there anticipating, okay, when's he gonna come back on? When and I think that's what they thought would keep people engrossed in the movie is trying to figure out when you're gonna see the bad guy or the monster again.
Right.
So by limiting how much, I think that was their thing then, to try and keep people engrossed.
And what's funny is this is not his first Hammer film that he was in. He was initially in the year before a version of Frankenstein called The Curse of Frankenstein, which he was the creature. Apparently in that one. So and Peter Cushing was in there with him as well. So,
Hmm.
but yeah, I believe they all played the creature at one point in time. I swear.
But that being said, I still, even as an adult, do enjoy going back to watching this one, and um like having the horror, I guess, the Hammer horror franchise type of in my collection. You know, I mean, I've got so many different Dracula movies, that have been put out by, whether it's Bella's in it or Christopher's in it, or the my favorite is actually the Bram Stoker's Dracula one. That, well, when did that one come out? 90s, right?
If you're talking about the Coppola one, yeah, it was 92, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now that one happens to be like my favorite, but um, but but that doesn't mean that I like this one even less. Any less. It's just they're all different in a little bit, and they all bring something different, and different eras, different actors. So,
Right.
and I see, for the most part, I like the older stuff because, don't get me wrong, I like technology and I like, all the stuff that we have nowadays and everything, but I like the imagination that people had to use for the older movies to make things happen. To me, they used their imagination more, you know. I mean, now you look back on some of these movies and you can see the string for the bat, or you can do, if you really look and everything. But that's part of what made the movies back then, is because, people use their imagination to make the things work.
Right.
You have to have a suspension of belief in order to get into some of these classic films. I mean, nowadays with the things that we see in the mainstream of things, imagine trying to do that now and try to get an audience for it. It's crazy. You can't. I mean, anything that was done on screen has been done already. So it's
I
hard to do something different.
Well, anything that has been done, yes, but there. Um, I'm not so sure I agree with the whole idea that there's less imagination now, but I see what you mean about making things work with the older technology. It can be very impressive to see how things work or why they work or whatever. Yeah.
Well, I mean, they do still have imagination. You still have to have an imagination for the new technology and everything.
Right. Right.
It's it's not. I guess maybe that wasn't the wrong word. It's just in maybe ingenuity is the better word. You know,
Yeah.
because nowadays a lot of times, well, we want to make this happen. Well, okay, a lot of times we'll just hit this on the computer and this on the computer. Okay, it still has to be created, even if you're using a computer and all that to do it.
Right.
Okay, but it took a lot more um, ingenuity and thought and everything to make things happen with the older movies. You know.
To make the right amount of makeup to make it look bloody, to make it look enough creatable to make them look like they're undead
Yeah.
and things of that nature. The stakes to look exactly right.
Mhm.
And I was
Um,
actually surprised because I looked it up to see where this was filmed, and um, I was really, really surprised that this was all supposed to be filmed at the studio and not any locations. And I'm like, really? Because I was used to a lot of older movies being filmed at actually locations.
well, they skipped a lot of that carriage ride for Jonathan Harker and his initial arrival at the at the estate of Dracula, which is probably due to studio location stuff. So they skipped a bit and brought him already to the estate. you
Well,
know.
yeah, I guess I'm
Well,
just the background, the buildings, and all that. I guess
well,
I was used to having that stuff actually be actual really real buildings, not just a set.
the as far as skipping his arrival at the cat or his journey to the castle, the way the movie's set up, it would make very little sense to have kept that.
Well, yeah,
So,
I agree. I agree. I mean, you don't really need the whole entire journey to tell the story of
well,
Dracula.
my point being is if he went there to kill Dracula, he knew what he was getting into. That's completely different from the original story of Jonathan Harker. So his journey in was completely different. It was more of, oh, that's interesting. Oh, isn't that something? He remarks on how cold the castle is. But in the original telling, Harker had reason to be on edge. He had reason to be nervous. He had, but he didn't know why. You know what I mean? Like it was going into the unknown without realizing what you're getting into. It's a completely different journey. So
Well, yeah,
I think they didn't need it in this one.
oftentimes the tale is told that he is going there to offer an estate for Count Dracula
Yeah,
over in the States or wherever he's from.
Britain,
The
Britain.
Carfax estate or whatever
Yeah,
is often the case, and oftentimes he's in the dark about who this dude is. All they
right,
know is that all he knows is that he's very old and he's supposed to uh, make sure that the deal is made.
right,
But what he doesn't know is it's a deal made with the devil.
right.
So.
Yeah,
But that is normally the story. But I also don't think he went there to initially kill him. he said that while he was in that narrative, that he
Yeah.
had procured a position at the estate, so that is why he was going.
Right. And that was one thing that threw me off was, if I'm not mistaken, it's been years since I read the original novel. I'm almost sure that opening narrative is taken directly from the book. I'm almost sure of it. But it's I guess they left out maybe certain parts that were going to be contradicted quickly, but it becomes very clear later that that's why he went there. I mean, you don't just roll up to a place like that with a satchel full of wooden stakes if you don't plan to use them. Yeah,
Right.
you know what I mean, but anyway. Oh, hey, Dustin.
Hello,
Glad to be back.
Yeah.
welcome back. We were just finishing up with first impressions. So why don't you tell us? Was this a first time watch for you with Horror of Dracula?
Well, I'd seen this many years ago originally, and I remember being a little unimpressed with it. But at the same time, that was when I was very new to horror, and I hadn't really seen that many Dracula adaptations. I mean, I came in liking Christopher Lee off The Wicker Man. But watching it this time, I think I had a much more of an appreciation for it. I liked how they essentially remixed a lot of things from the story, because at first I was a little hesitant because it's like, well, it's a Dracula adaptation. I've seen that so many times, even though this is an old adaptation. But rewatching it, I was surprised at, oh, okay, they did change quite a few things. So it kept me engaged, and I was pretty happy with this on this rewatch.
Okay. So is that pretty much it then?
Well, yeah.
Okay. And one thing that I was talking with Tammy, like when we were watching it, is like there's absolutely no Renfield in here. So
Nope.
and I don't think he really is that needed for this particular storyline, but it's definitely interesting that you can actually do without when you're retelling the story, you know. So, but
and they're really telling a different story too, with how much they changed. With Harker being a vampire hunter from the beginning, like him and Van Helsing have been staking out. Whoops, pun. Have been staking out Dracula and going there specifically to eliminate Dracula. That really switched things up. And then Harker marrying Lucy instead of Mina, and it just going in maybe like a parallel kind of direction rather than an opposite direction. Or I'm not really sure how else I'd describe the deviations from the original story that they do here.
Well, yeah, it's definitely different having them two as being partners from the beginning. You know.
Yeah.
To me, Abraham Van Helsing has always been kind of like a Captain Ahab type character. Where
here he's a lot measured.
Where like Dracula is like his white whale, you know.
Well, that is the idea, yeah.
But Tammy, did you want to bring us into the plot line here?
Well, like we've been discussing, the plot line is a little bit different than what we've been used to. Harker isn't there necessarily just to sell, real estate, basically. In this version, he is there to end Dracula. For that's what he
under the
is
pretense
there.
of sorting his library.
Right.
So, but if you know, if you hadn't seen any other Draculas, and this was the first time you saw any Dracula movie, you know, it would still be interesting what the plot is and everything. But because by the time this came out, you know, there were other ones already out, so you could tell the difference, you know, in the storyline and everything.
Well, yeah, it's just a change in the chemistry. If you get my drift.
Like to modernize Dracula, but for the 50s.
Well, yeah,
Somewhat.
with a little blood.
Yeah, that is a big difference from what the Dracula most people would have been familiar with would have been the 30s Universal one. And in this era, one of the things I think Hammer was known for was their use of very vividly colored blood. And you would not have been able to get anything, even there is not a huge amount of blood in this film, but even that much would have been like brand new, I think, to audiences at the time.
Yes.
Especially more mainstream ones.
Well, and they had to look at the stuff that Universal had already done and then find a different way to do it, because Universal had already copyrighted things in ironclad copyright where they would fight for the right for their usage of how they did things. Just like when they did their Frankenstein monster, they had to do stuff around the monster because of the fact that they had a copyright on how they did the bolts for the monster in the neck. So when Hammer came about and did it, they had to do things differently. So, and I think when it came to this film, that's another thing they had to factor in. What did Universal do that they could do? So, but in any case, back to the plot line.
So yeah, so yeah, Harker is in cahoots with Van Helsing, basically to eliminate Dracula in this one.
I don't think it worked, did it?
What?
Did his attempt to kill Dracula work?
Oh, well, no, because he is. I think he gets you basically want to say he gets distracted by the lady that, you know, you're gonna help me, you know, you're gonna get me out of here, you know. That I think that totally distracts him from his objective, you know.
Yes and no. I think he probably did want to help her, but if he was truly familiar with vampire lore, he probably would have helped her more by going straight to Dracula. And just from a strategic standpoint, hitting her first instead of Dracula was just stupid. But
I was gonna say that exact same thing. It's like, why wouldn't you do Dracula first? Because
right.
At first, when he comes in, and he's playing the role of, oh, I'm a scholar, I'm here to help with to catalog your library, and very quickly gets down to vampire hunting. Like, he should have priority targeted Dracula, because he does find their coffins, but kind of close to the end of the day, and it takes him so long to accomplish that. Instead of, it maybe would have been smarter to wait one more night and just do it right in the morning after he'd found them, instead of trying to do it right away. Because I don't think they were really on to him. I mean, they knew he had seen them as vampires. I don't think they thought he was necessarily onto them at that point. So he should have waited, or, well, I guess he probably didn't have a way to reach out to Van Helsing and have him come in.
No, the woman vampire had attacked him already.
And to be fair,
Right, but
he
I don't
actually
know.
did
I don't
send a
know if
letter out. He did send
he
a
did send
letter
a
out
letter.
through that girl.
Well, my point is, I don't know if Dracula and the woman actually knew he was a vampire hunter at that point when
Oh,
she
no.
attacked him.
I don't think so. No.
So
And I
I
don't
think
think they
like
figured
Dracula
that
got
out.
pissed, but I don't know. I don't think they had a reason to think he was a threat to them, even after that point.
That's probably
Until
true.
he, went down there and like staked the one vampire. And I mean, her scream woke up Dracula, but you could tell he couldn't. It seemed like he couldn't do anything until he was sure the sun was down. Like he was watching the window for the shadow.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think they thought of him as a threat either, but I think they thought of him more or less as, oh, fresh blood.
Right. So there was a self-preservation, I'm sure, involved in going ahead and trying to do it right away instead of waiting till morning. But it's strategically he could have waited till morning. But I mean, again, strategic, and I guess he probably didn't know vampires shriek as they die. I mean, or at least that sometimes they do. He probably didn't know that. But it should have been, like I said, common sense. You go for the bigger threat first. I mean, that's just. But we would have had a shorter movie too. So.
True.
Yeah.
That's why I think Jonathan Harker was more apprentice than
Got
a
caught up in that.
partner.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think Van Helsing even said that. And you can tell he was like, well, I said I'd help her. And so that you can see maybe that's why he like helped her first.
Right.
But it was really losing sight of the goal. And like having him be vampirized, that was a really, I didn't remember that little twist happening. So it's like, oh, Harker becomes a vampire instead of just, besieged by the brides and everything.
In a
I want to phrase
sense,
that.
In a sense, he always kind of did get, well, not in Nosferatu, but in most of the versions that I've seen, he's at least gotten sick as if he was becoming one, but he had not quite.
He didn't fully become a vampire with her
No.
fangs like he did in this one. I mean, we see him in the coffin with his
Correct.
fangs.
Yeah.
So that happening is an interesting thing. So I right there, it's like one of those moments,
Right.
But
am I remembering correctly? I think. Nah, never mind. I think I had a thought, but yeah. Anyway.
Well, and then like David said in this version too, there is no Renfield, which we are used to seeing Renfield, because this is somebody who is in Dracula's corner, kind of.
Yeah. Well, another thing about this one that I think I mentioned, I know I mentioned that I found this one surprisingly, I guess the best way to say is surprisingly straightforward. Like Christopher Lee's performance is very straightforward. It's restrained to a degree. I think Dustin made the point about Cushing's version of Van Helsing being a little bit restrained as well. Like, they're more straightforward than is typical. And in most versions I've seen, I think this goes for Van Helsing, but this definitely goes for Dracula. And it definitely goes for Renfield. And basically every version except probably the movie Renfield because Nicholas Hoult played Renfield pretty straightforward in that one. But in that one, Nicolas Cage absolutely stuck to this role, which is, I think, those three characters, Renfield and Dracula and Van Helsing, tend to be played larger than life. They tend to be played a bit over the top. There's usually some scenery chewing going on. And I don't think Van Helsing or Dracula really chewed a lot of the scenery in this movie. And it was
Right, they were not campy at all.
Yeah. It was a little weird. And not having Renfield at all just underscores that whole thing. You know?
And
Yeah.
plus,
Yeah.
the Lucy role is different too. You know.
Well, yeah. Well, as we said before, they kind of mixed up Lucy and Mina and definitely changed. And that was one of the things I was trying to think of. Like, I feel like it is Lucy who's actually killed and has to be staked in the original.
Yeah,
But she's not the fiance in that version. So it's like,
right.
Yeah, I don't remember all the specifics. But
I've seen it where Lucy has been the fiance and Mina has been the best friend. You know,
Which
Right.
is what this one is.
That's what this one is. Most
Correct.
versions, it's the opposite. And of course, I'm just going to throw out there. Y'all talked about the blood in this one. There is a. I can't think of Dracula
minuscule on the mouth blood.
Right. I can't think about their Dracula. Oh, look at how much blood, without thinking about the staking scene in Dracula Dead and Loving It. I mean,
Renfield, you asshole.
you have to know where to stand. But
Like I said, there's been there's been a lot of. Go ahead.
right.
I'm sorry. That was all I can think of. Whenever I think of Dracula Dead and Loving It, I can only remember that little moment. Renfield, you asshole! Like when he's a bat. After Renfield accidentally opens the curtains on him. I can't remember anything else that happened in that movie except for that little bit of dialogue.
It's been a long time since I've seen that one.
I haven't seen that one in a long time either.
It's not a great movie, but it's more fun than I remembered. Yeah. But yeah. There was a lot of blood in that staking scene. But anyway.
Well, we do have the Jonathan Harker death into vampire.
Right.
And then you have Van Helsing showing up in Transylvania and speaking with the innkeeper and his daughter. And his daughter ultimately hands him the diary of Jonathan Harker.
Mm-hmm.
So, what did y'all think about that moment?
Pretty
I was
typical.
wondering how she got it.
She said she found it at the crossroads, or that someone found it at the crossroads.
Because I remember him putting it in like a tree or whatever.
Yeah, he walked outside of the grounds and dropped it because he knew that would be the way it would be found.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, the daughter totally is going against everything that her dad's not very happy with her, you know? And
Oh, yeah.
She's trying to be helpful, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think she understands what is going on, and so does her father, but he doesn't want them to get involved is the whole thing. Because I think he thinks if they get involved, then Dracula's gonna turn on them, you know.
And it's shortly after that that he's shown where Jonathan Harker went, which is to the estate of Dracula. And he finds the place pretty much empty, except for he found Jonathan Harker asleep in one of the coffins on on the inside of one of of the estate somewhere on the grounds. And he found his stakes, and we didn't see it on screen, but we assume that
You know,
he actually staked him.
Yeah.
But then in the next scene, he's now speaking to the sister and brother of Mina, or sister-in-law, no, brother-in-law, and I would have to say wife.
Well, he's talking with Mina and Arthur Homewood, and then Lucy is the one that's in the room, you know.
Yeah, Lucy
Yeah.
is Parker's fiance in this one instead of Mina, and Mina is Arthur's wife instead of.
Which is kind of weird because he had a photo of Mina along with him, Mr. Harker.
Was it?
When that was me. That was a photo of Mina that he had along with him, and when Dracula said something about it to him, she's quite beautiful. You know,
That was Lucy.
Are you sure it wasn't
Are you
Lucy?
sure?
Yeah,
Yeah.
because in this one, he's married. His fiance is Lucy, and
Right.
I'm pretty sure I remember saying it was Lucy,
Yeah.
not Mina. Whereas in
I know,
all the other
but
adaptations-
it looked like a picture of Mina, though, to
well,
me.
I know these people are hard to tell apart, but I'm pretty positive it was Lucy.
Okay.
He did say her name was Lucy to him.
Okay.
He did, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So we find out that Lucy is still in bed, and she's pining after Jonathan Harker. And at this point in time, she hasn't been bitten yet.
No, she has.
Oh, she has?
She has.
Okay.
She has
Okay, so she
She's
has
been-
already been.
last few days.
Yeah.
Okay.
They actually, when Van Helsing comes in on the conversation on this, he asks how long she's been feeling ill, and they say the timeline that they give him, he immediately knows what's going on because
Yeah, Dracula came straight here after turning Jonathan into a vampire.
right.
Well, he was without a bride. Anyways, Tammy, bring us forward.
So, okay, we're at what Van Helsing just got there, right?
Well, he's pretty much there to explain Jonathan Harker's death, and there's some mysteriousness about it and all that jazz. And
Right, and and he's trying. I think at this point he's trying to convince others of what's going on because they don't really believe in this. Correct?
well, yeah, they kind of think of Van Helsing as kind of like an intrusion, so to speak. And why, if you're bringing us news of his death, why can't you tell us any more about it? I mean, the least you could do is tell us the circumstances. That's what the brother is all like.
Right. But then he gets asked to look in on Lucy, I believe. for another opinion as to what's going on because the doctor that's treating her is just saying that it's anemia.
Right. Which
Van
Dr.
Helsing. Go ahead.
I was going to say Dr. Seward has a much smaller role in this one than he normally does, although he does still have a role. But
Well, yeah. Oftentimes, Dr. Seward is often like the head of a insane asylum that
Right.
that Renfield is part of.
But yeah, I mean, Arthur definitely is less than enthused about Van Helsing, but Mina is more open-minded about it, and she's the one that asks him for the second opinion. Yeah.
And he basically orders her. He orders her and commands her to listen to him. Because if she does not do this, Lucy will die. So he says to put all these flowers of garlic around her and near the windows and close up the windows and whatever to help protect her during the night. And do not, even for a moment, even if the patient is telling you to get rid of it, remove it at all.
Do not, even if she implores you, I think was what he says. Yeah.
Correct. And of course, you got a maid who has a sympathetic ear that comes in during the night and does exactly the opposite, even though she's been told not to.
Right. Although I gotta say, I don't think there was any garlic in those bouquets. It sure didn't look like it.
Maybe not, but for effect's sake, we had to believe that there were.
Yeah, and also I found it interesting they called them garlic flowers, and typically it's bulbs that you see used, and I'm like, okay, is this just a Britishism I'm unaware of, or is this?
Oftentimes, you would in some of these older vampire movies find people who had vines of garlic that came in flower like substances, or even like how you used to see onions hanging down on vines, kind of similar to that.
Right. Again, I'm still unfamiliar with the terminology that calls those flowers, but I could be wrong.
I thought they were called florets.
More like garlands than anything else.
Yeah, garland is more what you're talking about, the bundled ones. Yeah.
Wonder what I was thinking of then.
Well, it worked for it worked for the superstitious villagers.
Very superstitious.
All right, Tammy, bring us forward.
We are. I'm trying to think of how far we got into this now.
We kind of been skipping back and forth, but
so far we are after. I believe we're after Van Helsing has gone to the castle, dispatched vampire Jonathan, and they're back in what I assume is London because this is British.
The whole movie is set in Germany. If you listen to the places that they mention, it's all German. Yeah.
Yeah, they're naming places in German, but I got kind of mixed up.
Right.
With the location.
Well, because it's supposed to be. It's supposed to.
We're back with we're back at any rate. We're back in civilization, and Lucy has been, having her nightly fits from Dracula's visits,
Right.
and they're trying to figure out what to do with that. We were just before when she actually does die, after the maid removes all the garlic because Lucy tells her to, which again, just pure oathery from this dumb maid. It's like, you were told, definitely don't get rid of these. It's like, get rid of these. Oh, all right, okay. Like, did they talk to her at all, or just? And I was surprised the maid did it because it was just so stupid.
Well, yeah, especially during that point in time, where if you think of things in the way that they portray servants on Downton Abbey these days, the maids and the servants obeyed orders, no matter what. But this one disobeyed, and just listened to the plea of the young woman, which apparently is also her master.
But this isn't the only version where the maid didn't listen.
True that.
So
But anyways,
the maid has removed the garlic in other versions also.
what she did ended up in Lucy's death, and so now the next day, Seward has arrived, has just pulled the sheets over her face, and then whoosh, Van Helsing comes in and looks at her and demands, okay, didn't you listen to what I said? And that's when the maid stepped forward and was like, it's my fault.
What did you guys think of their version of how to do a transfusion?
The equipment looked pretty antiquated, I think is the word I would use. But it didn't seem like it wouldn't work. Like, it looked believable enough to me.
I mean, we were talking about look at the size of those needles, compared to nowadays,
Well,
And-
yeah. It's probably hard to make smaller.
And at that time, they didn't realize that there was, more than one type of blood,
And I think this was at a time before the hypodermic needle was invented. So, unless they were actually using a hypodermic needle then, I didn't really see one.
That's another thing. I'm not actually sure what year this movie was set in either. If there was a tagline if there was like a subtitle like telling us the year, I think I missed it.
Yeah, I don't think it was really told to us exactly what year or century that it was set in. But we're just supposed to expect that it was done in the horse and carriage era. Horse and buggy, still.
Right.
Yeah, because there's definitely horse and buggies in it.
Unless they're in Amish country.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that was up through the horse and buggy was up till 1911.
Yeah, and even a little bit into the maybe 1915 era thereabouts, till the motor car was invented.
Yeah, there's a lot of time that could be. This could be the 1830s. It could be, the 1700s. Well, maybe not the 1700s. So it would have to be the 1800s, probably, right?
Yeah,
Probably.
that would be about what I would think, like late 1700s, early 1800s.
We're still firmly Victorian then. I mean, because the looks
yes, I think it's definitely set back because the you got the inn and the innkeeper, and the innkeeper say you came into my what he said when Van Helsing he's like, you came into my inn and you asked for drink and food, and so I have to honor that because you came into my inn and asked. He goes, but afterwards I remember him saying, but afterwards I would expect you to leave, you know?
I respectfully ask you to leave.
You to leave, yeah. So
And make your departure as soon as you can.
So just to, for the previous question, the book was mostly written in the 1890s. And I believe, if I remember correctly, that it was like a not too far in the distant past kind of deal.
Yeah.
You know, like, yeah, so late 1800s definitely seems logical. Yeah. But anyway.
Okay, so that transfusion happened later with Mina, but there's a lot that happened in between.
Right.
So,
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, when Lucy dies, of course, we have the little girl comes in terrified that she'd seen her Aunt Lucy, and that's like,
well, yeah, Lucy had resurrected,
right.
evidently in front of the little girl, which the little girl, evidently she was a local child,
Well,
and
I
she
think,
came in with the constable.
right.
Wasn't she the child of like one of the maids or something?
I got the impression it was Arthur. Wasn't it Arthur and Lucy? Well, actually, I don't know. I was a little concerned. I was a little confused about that. I was a little confused about that because she calls her Aunt Lucy, and I feel like there was a scene where Mina seemed to treat her as relation, but then she refers to her husband as Mr. Homewood when she's talking to him, and it's like, I don't know. I'm not sure. But whatever the case, she's a child that the audience can look. Oh, there's a scared little kid. Yeah.
Well, when Lucy was became like what they called the Bloofer lady in the original story, there was a whole subplot of like her attacking children.
Yeah.
So Hilda or whatever her name was in there for that purpose. I just can't remember exactly who she belongs to.
Okay.
But yeah, when she's the first one to see Lucy up walking around after she's come back, and that launches us into kind of Van Helsing explains what's going on, and they don't really believe him until he takes them into the woods, and the girl runs into Lucy again, and they're able to like save her, and then they have to kill Lucy, but Van Helsing has the idea, well, maybe we shouldn't kill her right away, maybe we should follow her to Dracula. And Arthur refuses because it's like, I can't let her live like this 1 minute longer. I couldn't remember his exact dialogue. And so then they go and
Arthur's a little bit of a dandy at first. Believing in everything, but it's not until he sees his sister Lucy in the unflesh that he's like, and then Van Helsing comes in and saves the day, kind of, sort of. And you were right. He wants to follow her to Dracula, but Arthur
doesn't have the stomach for it yet.
Nope. So I believe that she is staked in the heart, and her body just kind of lays there, But
interesting effect they did when Jonathan staked pardon me, I have a cold of some kind. When Jonathan staked Dracula's bride, or whoever she was, I don't know if she's actually given a name in the film other than Lady Vampire. like after he killed her, she withered and became old. And when they stake Lucy here, Lucy just seems to kind of flicker back to normal, which she didn't really look all that different as a vampire. But they added some kind of effect, I think, like either to brighten her up or like
Well, Lucy
desaturate her.
wasn't that old of a vampire, you know. So she's not gonna look that
Well,
much
yeah,
different once she gets staked.
Right.
right. But I thought some camera. I thought I remembered. I saw some camera effect where they just like subtly changed something. Like maybe maybe even just the way she was lit. Like there was like a shimmer like over her as she became human again. Well, died again. But I don't know, I thought that
they only list the Vampire Bride as Vampire Woman.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Couldn't remember a name for her, and I usually
Something
don't.
very vague. But yeah, so after that, I do believe that's where. Okay, I do believe that Van Helsing and Arthur are out and about still, and somehow Mina gets called to where Dracula is. Except she thinks it's Arthur, I think. And that's where she gets bitten the first time, and she comes in, and neither one of them realize that she's been bitten. She just looks a little pale.
Yeah, they don't realize she's been bitten until he goes to give her the cross to hold on to while they're gone.
And it burns an indentation into her hand, the shape of the cross.
Right, and then she
another thing that Van Helsing did is he took that same cross and stuck it to the forehead of Lucy.
Right. And the scar disappeared after she got staked.
Correct.
Yeah.
So
I don't know why.
I thought it was kind of clever how they had her lured, how they had Mina lured to Dracula, because they're doing their investigation and they go have that kind of funny scene where they're trying to shake down whoever that guy is, like the constable or I can't remember whoever was in charge of the records for the shipments because they knew about the name.
He was like a customs agent or something.
Right, and his entire thing was all, it's against policy to tell you that. I can't reveal anything. And eventually, I think they just hand him like a bunch of bills, and he's like, "Well, this is an emergency, and you are a doctor, so."
Yeah, it's funny how much money talked even back then, right?
Right.
That was really fun. I enjoyed that.
I would call that the vampire bribe.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways,
so but, anyway, while it's happening, there's that message that somebody brings to the door where it's like, Mina, your husband wants you to come to this place. And she's like, are you sure? And so while they're off, doing that part of the investigation, Lucy goes to the mortuary where Dracula is not so suddenly hiding. And then the next morning is when she returns. Mina. Damn. See, I did it too. And then when she returns, we get the scene that we were talking about just now, where she's like, "Oh yeah, I feel fine. I went for a walk."
Yeah.
It seems like Dracula's powers include a lot more hypnosis than usual in this one, where his victims are just kind of like eagerly like, "Oh yeah, he's here." Like it seems like you're made more compliant than usual Dracula stories are.
Right.
Well, and
I don't know Bella's way of enticing. I think his look and his his
stare,
eyes, his stare, or is a lot more.
Come to me, my dear.
Yeah.
Christopher Lee's
that same kind of effect You don't
We
think that
don't,
kind
but
of the same kind of effect?
well, no, it seems like Christopher Lee's Dracula just has to like appear and smile, and they do all that stuff. Like he doesn't have to say spells or whatever.
Well, and even before he arrives, the victim, like Lucy, she had a perpetual, like almost like grin on her face, like she was already getting horny.
Basically, yeah.
Right. As you do.
But in any case, okay, so after the cross made the indentation on Mina and she fell to the floor because it kind of like knocked her out, they take and place her in her bedroom, and then they do nothing like they did with Lucy and walk out.
Well, am I remembering correctly that the scene at the Undertaker's with Arthur and Van Helsing that was before this? Yes.
I think
Yes.
that
Okay.
was.
That's worth mentioning. That's worth mentioning because that was a fun Undertaker.
Yeah, he was. I thought the Undertaker was kind of great. He kind of reminded me of Mr. Michelin in The Quiet Man.
I'm trying to remember. There was like one particular line that amused me, and I cannot for the life of me remember what it was. But he had this. He was remarkably upbeat. Oh, and I think he said something about like you want to watch your step and be careful. It's like you wouldn't want to come pay your respects and end up staying forever. It's like something to that effect. I'm like, oh, that's pretty.
Oh yeah, because he was telling the story about how someone died tripping down the stairs once when visiting.
Right. It's good times.
So, although now that I think about it, I think that was after they had first checked on Lucy, not Lucy, Mina, because they had found out that she had gone there.
Oh yeah.
Or, well, I'm not sure if they actually did find out that she had been there. They got the address from the customs guy.
Yeah, that was them checking out on that. They figured out where the coffin was later when the maid was like, I didn't want to say anything because you got so angry the last time I went against orders. Yeah, but
yeah, coffin they delivered downstairs yesterday and had me lock up, and it's like,
yeah.
Are you kidding, lady?
Yeah.
You didn't think that was something you should tell us?
That was strange. It's like, I don't know. That I did think that was. I did have a pretty good laugh at that, though. It's like, oh yeah, Dracula was just hiding in your house.
Right.
All right.
Well, yeah. I think Dave, you were saying they did nothing. What they did was they patrolled the grounds. They were watching to make sure he couldn't come in.
Well, yeah, but they didn't even put any like garlic in her room or anything like they did for Lucy. It's like, what the hell? Do they not even care about Mina now?
Apparently.
But they didn't realize that he was already in the house.
It doesn't matter whether he was in the house. At least give her some protection. My God.
Well, I think it was this part where he tried to force her to take the crucifix, right?
I think it was
that was right before they stuck her in the room, but
maybe that was the next day.
It was right before they stuck her in the room, but when they stuck her in the room while she was unconscious, they didn't stuff the room with garlic flowers like they did for Lucy.
That would have been a good idea, yes.
Well, maybe they figured it didn't work for Lucy, so why would it work for her?
The only reason why it didn't work is because the maid fucking took the shit away.
Right. Well, maybe she threw it all away and they didn't have any on hand.
Maybe.
There wasn't anybody available to go to the store.
They were thistles. They weren't garlands. Anyways, so when they come back, they find out that Mina's been killed.
Hmm.
Or not killed. She's close to death because
Dracula took her.
yeah,
Right.
they took her, but
No,
and then so they had to find her somewhere else. I think back at Dracula's castle, correct?
No, I messed up the sequence of events because even though this is a short movie, but
Yeah.
things happen very quickly, and so
Yeah.
even I'm getting kind of mixed up here with the order of events because after they fail to figure out where Dracula is, they find Mina like badly drained, and they have to give her a transfusion.
Right.
Yep.
And that's when the conversation with the maid happens, and they find out, oh wait, he's in the basement. And then Van Helsing runs to the basement and flips open the empty coffin. Flips open the empty coffin, and then Dracula, just pops out like, ha ha, and locks him in. Like I laughed out loud at that. It's just like there.
Well,
Oh.
and that's when Van Helsing threw a cross into to the coffin.
Right.
And then when they go to when he goes back up to the room, that's when we realize that he has taken Mina.
Right.
Yeah. He's taken Mina, which they get in the carriage and they find out that find a body of the carriage driver.
Mhm.
And they mentioned something about you can't tell me that Dracula actually killed the carriage driver, and he's like, "Yep, of course he did."
But again, this kind of underscores something. The biggest change here is that the whole thing takes place probably within a few dozen miles, because you can only get it so far in a carriage, horse and buggy, so their home and Dracula's home are not that far away, apparently.
Well, I found this part kind of funny because Dracula runs through this gated facility thing and breaks the fucking fence, and the dude that mans it got up and taped it back together, and that's about when Van Helsing and Arthur showed up, and they ran straight through, and he's like, "You bastards!"
Of course.
But ultimately, I'm not even sure where they end up really, because supposedly Dracula's castle is supposedly not anywhere near where Mina and Arthur live.
Well, again, that's what I'm saying. In this movie, they are close to one another.
Yeah, because that's where they end up.
Right.
I mean, because he's trying to bury her in just plain the plain earth, no coffin or nothing at the castle.
Because evidently he's angry at her for some reason. I don't know why, but evidently she just refuses to be his bride or something. But in any case,
I think he was just trying to bury her before the sun came up, and he didn't have a chance to get a coffin. But
yep.
Sometimes in the vampire lore, you have to be bitten, and then the vampire has to bury you. Like that's how it worked on True Blood to make a vampire.
Right.
So ultimately, he runs inside the estate or castle or whatever the hell it is, and Van Helsing follows suit. He leaves Arthur to unbury his sister, and there is a chase that is involved, and then a slight battle where it looks like Van Helsing is being choked, and then he acts like he's dead, and then suddenly he like springs back into action and gets away from him, and then he realizes that it's becoming broad daylight outside. So he jumps onto the long table, runs up to it, and rips it down. And he then takes two candlesticks that apparently are iron and puts them into a cross, and basically just kind of backs him into the sunlight. And
He puts Dracula
piece by
into the
piece, he melts him ashes to ashes and dust to dust.
I
Uh-huh.
was just gonna say this. What's interesting is you first you see his foot melt, then you see one hand, then you know, like, and as
Right.
he's trying to back away out of the sunlight, you know.
It's like each piece of him that gets pushed into the beam just disintegrates, but it doesn't. It's like it doesn't spread. It doesn't spread. Like you have to push his whole being into the light, like piece by piece.
It was like a decapitation with sunlight. Almost.
More of a dismembering, really.
Yeah, dismembering. There we go. Better word. But it was actually a pretty decent like scene to see for early like
Right.
vampire in the sunbaking.
The effects were very good. So, and the there too, like Helsing pretends Dracula chokes him out, and Helsing pretends to lose consciousness. So Dracula relaxes his grip, and that's when he slips away and is able to do all that stuff. I especially liked Peter Cushing's like dive for the curtain, like he just grabs onto it and his body weight rips it down.
Yeah.
So it felt like an actual fight, like the way it was choreographed. Like it wasn't like exaggerated or goofy in any way.
Yeah, it was a pretty good fight scene.
Yeah. I enjoyed it.
Uh-huh.
And ultimately, Dracula got destroyed, and Mina was restored to life.
Right.
And end of tale. Which added to the vampire lore that if you destroyed the lead vampire, all vampirelings would return to human form or return to life, which is one of the vampire lores.
Right.
I think it's also similar in the werewolf lore too. Like if you ultimately if you kill the
If you kill the
wolf
head.
that bit you, yeah,
If
or
you kill
ate
the
that-
one that made you.
correct. Or another one is you eat the heart of the one that made you, which comes from
Is it
American Werewolf in Paris. So
Oh, I didn't remember that for sure. Wow.
yeah. But in any case,
Oh, it is American Werewolf in Paris. People do try that one.
people shit on that one a lot, whereas I actually enjoy it along with the original one just as much. I don't know.
I
saw
remember thinking it was okay last time I saw it.
but
Like I didn't. It wasn't good, but it wasn't like I hate this so much. You know.
well, yeah, it was always kind of in the middle. The American Werewolf in London will always be like the
One of the best.
one to look at. But I thought it was an okay sequel. So
Right.
Right, but anyway, now basically the movie ends with Dracula's ashes blowing away after this point.
yep.
Right.
And now we're at production. So, what did everyone think about production?
The effects
I
are
thought
pretty
for
good.
its time. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
You go ahead, Tammy. I didn't mean to cut you
Oh,
off.
I thought for its time it was really good. I mean, we were, we've talked about earlier on that, you know, at this time you didn't have all the stuff that we have nowadays for making these movies. So they had to use, you know, whatever they had to make these effects and everything. So you know, um, although this movie really wasn't one to, this particular version, I don't think even by nowadays thing standards and stuff, you would have really had to use much for an effect. This one just it didn't need even then of a lot of effects. So
They were
it didn't.
also they're also a little bit limited in the budget, and that I think there was some creativity involved in workarounds for that. Um, there's like one part where I think it's Arthur says something like, "Can't vampires turn into bats or wolves or some such thing?" And Van Helsing says something like, "Well, that's a common myth." He just kind of scoffs at it and whatever. But I think from what I read, that was a way for the studio to explain away why they weren't doing that. you
Well,
know,
yeah, because we're used to the wolves or bats
right,
and being in the vampire movies.
right. But that was a good way to work around budgetary issues there. Um, and I'd say overall, yeah, the movie looks good. It's a decent production. It's
My mic was muted there for a second. Sorry. I was trying to say that I really appreciated that line of, "Oh, that's a common myth with the transformations,"
right,
because later that's a joke. Like when they can't figure out how Dracula's getting into the house, it's like, "Are you sure he can't transform into something?"
right,
The way he says it, almost just like that. Like that.
right.
That made me too.
Okay, so 81,000 was supposedly the estimated budget of this film in 1958. In 2025, with the inflation rates of today, it would have been equivalent to $905,428.65.
Which is still kind of cheap by today's standards.
I mean, we didn't really crazy effects. I mean, we had some blood, we had costumes, we had sets. That's just a normal movie, really.
Well, for context, when we were doing the Versus Awards, our cap for low budget feature was $1 million. I had so much freaking difficulty finding any movie that wasn't micro budgeted that had a published budget under $1 million. So 900,000 is definitely still a low budget film, even though it sounds like a lot. And also, what did IMDb? I think IMDb claimed that Cat NATO was 100K, and I'm like,
I call bull.
I call bullshit on that, but still, uh, that's amusing to me to think about that. And by the way, I went back and looked it up later. Both El Mariachi and Clerks together cost less than 100K. Even adjusted for inflation, they're probably both still cheaper than that figure. And it's like, yeah, that was bull. I don't know what they spent 100K on. But anyway, but this one, yeah, I think they did good with what they had on hand.
I as well. I thought they did well with the ashes, the turn to ashes
Right,
scene with Dracula. I thought when uh, I mean, I think that Christopher Lee kind of personified some of the vampire characteristics of Dracula, like when he first bit Lucy, he brought his cape up, and you didn't see him bite her, but and that was something Bella would do, you know. But I
There was somebody I knew in college who was convinced that Christopher Lee actually was a vampire, and they were pissed when they found out he passed away. That's how good he was. That's how good he was in the role.
But if they really thought that, I mean, we were talking earlier about how young he is here. What do they think vampires age like normal people? Is that the?
Well, he looks at the time. Christopher Lee looked kind of similar to the way he did in this one. Like you get an impression of Christopher Lee in your mind, and I mean, yes, he does age, but he doesn't seem to age all that much from what you're picturing in your mind, or at least that's how it worked for me. It's also quite likely that guy was nuts. So.
I will grant you that he did not age as visibly as Peter Cushing did. And even Michael Gough, Michael Gough looks older than dirt in Batman and Batman Returns. But he's still, when I saw him in this movie, I'm like, okay, that's definitely Michael Gough. Like, you can tell, like, he's similar. And Christopher Lee definitely looks like Christopher Lee here. It's just, I find that amusing. Like the whole joke of is Steve Martin actually a vampire, to me makes more sense than Christopher Lee. But anyway.
No, it's valid.
Although I do much prefer Michael Gough's version of Alfred. And what's funny is he was Alfred here. Or wait, no, he was Arthur. That's right. He was an A name. He was an A name.
Yeah.
Close enough, right? They're all the same.
Right? But in any case, yeah. I think for a first Dracula movie in the Hammer horror franchise of things, it wasn't bad.
Right.
So, but let's go into seeing what the music, or who composed the music for the sucker. Pun intended. Backwards. All right. And beyond the cast. James Bernard.
Yeah.
And Bernard.
Back from some that I got at half price books a very long time ago. It's still worth some money. It's like 15, 20.
Okay, so Bernard actually composed the Curse of Frankenstein, which Christopher Lee did and was in that one as the creature. The year before this movie was, and it looks like he worked a lot. Worked a lot with Christopher Lee in his later career as well. When it came to the Amicus Productions, which is the predecessor of Hammer Horror Studios.
The predecessor?
I would have to say, not predecessor.
Successor.
I would have to say probably the studio that took Hammer Horror's reign, and then until it came back and resurfaced.
Because Amicus, I know Amicus had the Tales from the Crypt and Vault of Horror movies in like the early 70s, and Hammer Horror was like the 60s, was it not?
Hammer Horror was the 60s to early 70s to a little bit into the later 70s.
Wouldn't Amicus have been the successor or like followed Hammer?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. It was the successor, and then it died out. Let's see. It died out looking Okay, so it died out somewhere in the late 90s or late 80s to early 90s. Because the last thing that Amicus did was the Hammer House of Horror. And now there is someone who has resurrected the Amicus Productions. Laurie Brewster has resurrected the company itself under his brand. So he's trying to bring it back. So there might be a resurgence in that kind of horror. Currently, he's a director
So we
from
might be getting
the UK.
might be getting more British horror, you mean? Or?
Okay, what was all that?
I don't know. That was very strange. I was saying, so we might be getting more British horror from the new Amicus in the future.
Correct. From Laurie Brewster, who did The Unkindness of Ravens and in some other films. I do believe that our friend Dane was actually in one of his anthologies not too long ago.
Okay.
But he has bought the rights for the Amicus Productions name and has gotten it back into. In fact, I think he's working on the first 2 films under that guise right now. I think one of them is called In the Grip of Madness or something like that.
Okay.
So, but he keeps showing pictures of like the set that he's building or whatnot. But in any case, so we talked about the composer. Let's go into favorite scenes and or favorite characters. Well, let's start with you, Dustin.
I think I actually like Cushing's Van Helsing the most in this because he's like a real academic. He's not a, kook, for lack of a better term, the way he is in a lot of other incarnations of Dracula. And it's, I don't know, this is the first Van Helsing who I find like totally likable. Like the Anthony Hopkins Van Helsing has a couple of, he's funny, but he has a couple of things that kind of like bug me that he says and does. Whereas I like everything about Cushing here. And for a favorite scene, I think it would have to be, I'm trying to remember what exactly it was, because there were a couple of moments where I did laugh out loud, and I already talked about some of them, and I think it's one of those. I'm trying to remember. Yes, the at the stakeout and the aftermath of its failure. And just Arthur, are you sure he can't transform into something? So that's, I'm going to probably give that my vote because I'm going to remember that, I think, more vividly than a lot of the rest of the film. Although, of course, the finale where we get Dracula melting to ash, that's also pretty memorable. But I want to go with just that silly, stupid little moment. Are you sure he can't change? So, because that just tickled me so well.
Okay. What about you, Jake? Favorite scene and or favorite characters?
I would say my favorite character is probably the Undertaker. I did like him, and that scene is a strong contender for my favorite moments. Although I will admit that I was impressed by the disintegration in the sun. I thought that was well done. And to the point from earlier, I think that probably did show some creativity and ingenuity for them to pull that effect off. So I'll give that a mention. But I do think the whole scene with the Undertaker is probably my favorite.
Okay. How about you, Tammy? Favorite scene or scenes, and our favorite character or characters.
Well, my favorite character is, of course, Dracula, um, Christopher Lee. Now, I don't want to be a downer to everybody because everybody's been talking about Christopher Lee as Dracula and all this. I, as far as the older ones, I actually prefer Bella over Christopher Lee.
Huh.
But anyways, um, I do think he did a good job though as being Dracula. And my favorite scene is the whole the whole ending, the whole fight and everything, and how he disintegrates. I in a way found a little bit amusing about first the foot, then the hand, then then we get as he's moving, then we get more. But I think they did a good job though, anyways, and um, but that would have to be my favorite scene.
Okay. And as far as my favorites, I do enjoy that Undertaker dude as well. I know he said something that was kind of like a corny joke that maybe something like similar to like the customer had a stake in it or something like that. I don't know. But there, I will have to say my favorite scene is the end battle scene. Um, I thought the maid in here was just dumb. Um, but the melting scene in the sun to ash was a pretty great scene for me. So, um, at the end of everything, did anyone else have anything else to add?
Nah.
Well, just that this is a great older film that still holds up well today, and it was a very short film. I think it was only like 81 minutes or something.
Yeah, about a hour
Close.
and 20 some minutes or
Yeah,
so.
even older movies that are shorter like that, usually their pacing makes them feel much longer. This did not feel long,
Right.
so I want to give
No,
some credit.
it definitely did not feel long. So, in any case, on that note, hopefully you ladies and gentlemen have enjoyed our discussion here, and hopefully you guys can follow along with us because we are not done with the Hammer horror section of things. This we have a whole month here that's dedicated to it. So like, share, and subscribe. Let us know down in the comments what you thought of our discussion, what you thought of the movie, and we'll see you next time here on Inside Movies.
What is next time?
Next time, I forget the actual movie. I'll have to get back to you guys about it. I'll ask Brandon in the morning. I know he told me the order of things, but um. I'll also ask him if he's got the link to the a movie as well, so that people can watch it or whatnot. But in any case, I thought it. Do you remember the other titles that you chose, Tammy?
I don't remember the order.
Well, I'm not asking for the order, but
Are
do you
they not
remember the other
chronological?
titles? I know there. She had other titles of Taste the Blood. I think Taste the Blood is later. Brides of Blood might be later. It's very possible it might be the Scars of Dracula being next. I'm pretty sure
Would they
or
be the chronological ones?
I
It
think
might be
would.
Dracula, Prince of Darkness.
I think it would chronologically. I think it ends. I think with the satanic rites,
Correct.
Okay.
but
So I
but
think it's Dracula,
I think
Prince of Darkness.
Prince of Darkness is after this one because I remember the plot of that one more, and it would have to follow this one.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Which
I
one?
believe that we will be discussing Dracula, Prince of Darkness next.
Okay. That makes sense.
So I was trying to think about it in my mind. So, but in any case, did you guys want to say an outro or whatnot? We can, but they kind of already know who we are.
Yeah.
So in any case,
All I'm gonna say is follow the tours because new material is actually coming out, and I mean it this time.
All right.
very cool. I'm looking forward to it. In any case, we'll see you all next time. Everyone say good night.
Good night.
Fun.
Share, subscribe, do all that.
Inside movies galore, just makes you just want more. We've had all in the world of media to explore. Horror, anime, or Curious George. Our love of new things was our reward. It is the best night of our week.
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.